morning. We're lucky today to have Ali Murphy with us. She's a prize-winning voice actress and actress, and was fortunate to have her in a movie that we made, which is called The Mythos Murders, which we'll talk about. But this is about Ali, not the movie.
Ah, hello. I'm Ali Murphy. I am a British actress, but I'm based in Washington, near Seattle. I moved here about 2.5 years ago from just south of London, a little place called Guildford, and yeah, loving the Washington film industry.
Is there more film industry here than you thought there would be?
I think it's growing. I think my first year here predictably it was pretty quiet because I was new here and I got an agent, but I hadn't quite been able to meet people as much yet, and getting your foot in the door is the biggest step really. And once I've met people, it's much easier to get booked again because people get to know you, they get to trust you, and hopefully like you.
Coming to Washington from England, as an actor, in England, were you mostly doing theater? Were you doing voice acting? What kind of acting were you doing over there?
So I was predominantly doing voice acting. I was an actor when I was a kid, and I did a lot of theatre, did a lot of Shakespeare actually, and did tours and loved that theatre life. And all I was ever going to be was an actor. And then I started getting some TV work, which I just fell in love with. I just loved. I love that. I love being on a set, and I love that whole collaborative. Every single team member, when everything goes really quiet and you're all working towards one piece of work. I love that. And so I decided I'd rather focus on television and film. And then I just kept getting knocked back. And I was only 19 years old, and it was the 90s. So work there was pretty. Everyone had to be really beautiful and really tall and thin. Everyone had to be a supermodel as well as an actor. They weren't really casting very many real-looking people of my age group, especially because that age group was tended to be the romantic leads. So yeah, I was getting so many knockbacks and people telling me I was, a bit too fat or a bit too ordinary looking. And so I decided to take a break, and I did. I took a 14-year break from the whole entertainment industry. And when I came back, I didn't have so much confidence. I wasn't sure of my ability, so I went into doing voiceover, so like commercials and corporate work and stuff like that, and then started doing video games and back in love with completely embodying a character. Just before I turned 40, I decided that I was going to go back into on camera work, and so really, I'd only been back on camera for a year or two before I moved over here. So the London scene for me was mainly voiceover. I was doing that for about 6 years before I moved over here. And then I started doing short films and commercials and stuff in London before I moved over. So really, most of my career has actually been in the States on camera. I booked more work last year than I'd done in the 2 years in London, which is crazy because you think that, the London film scene is humongous. It's possibly bigger than LA now. In fact, a lot of the Hollywood movies, the big blockbusters, are actually filmed in the UK now. So it's a shame I missed out on taking advantage of all of that. But maybe I needed to be here rather than being over there.
Hmm, interesting. So in London, they missed out and we won out because you came over here.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know I lucked out. So
What have been your favorite roles in all the roles you've had? Which are the most fun for you? Are they comedy or dramatic or romantic, or what have been your favorites so far?
it's funny because actually what I love more than anything is comedy, but there's so few roles for women in their 40s, especially unknown women in their 40s in comedy. So it's not something. I did book one romantic comedy film last year, and we started filming, but sadly it got shut down halfway through, so that work will never come to light. but I loved doing that. I love comedy, and I would love to do more of that. But I think so far my favorite experience was last year apart from Mythos Murders, of course. But but last year I filmed a proof of concept film called Natural Selection, and the way that the writers pitched it to me was it's basically Jurassic Park meets Pride and Prejudice. And I was sold. I mean, that was just a combo of everything. And my character was also quite funny, so I got some comedy lines in there as well, which was great. Um, so that was basically I had to fly to Maine, which I'd never been to Maine, and I love travel, so that was awesome. Went to Maine, worked with this incredible group of creative people, and ran through forests in full period costume, being chased by dinosaurs. So that was probably my most favourite role so far, and I really hope that gets turned into a full feature film because I just want to do more of that, really.
Well, I'll tell you what, on this webcast, we'll either link to that trailer or we'll try to get an excerpt from it because it looks great. And
Oh,
Charles
yeah.
Darwin is in that?
Yes, yeah, and that was what was amazing. So is about Charles Darwin on a voyage, and he discovers a land full of dinosaurs. So it's kind of I love that whole based loosely around true stories. Of obviously Charles Darwin didn't do that, but I love that there's a real historical character in there. And where I grew up in England, a little town called Shrewsbury, is where Charles Darwin was born. So I feel like I've got some connection there.
It's funny in America, we always see pictures of Darwin looking 90 years old with old white hair, sitting shriveled in the garden. And in the Darwin with you in the trailer, he's a young, handsome guy, dynamic. And it was quite different, and it was nice to see. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
what was funny for me was in the Mythos Murders, you played. Well, tell me about your part in the Mythos Murders. Who did you play there and how did you play?
So I played a detective and I played an American detective. So I was quite shocked to book in fact, I think you guys were my first American role. Lieutenant Kane. I keep saying detective. Lieutenant Kane I played. And yeah, and in fact, when I initially auditioned, I went with a British accent because it's just you might as well. That's what I sound like. And then for the callbacks, they asked if I could try American, and I did. And thankfully, it was convincing enough to be part of it. It was so much fun filming the Mythos Murders. Just the cast and the crew was so good and dedicated, and got to do some driving scenes which were really fun, and working with doing gun work which I'd never done before. So that was exciting too.
With what I noted after watching the late cuts, it's in post production now, was that we did something to you, which Terry Gilliam did to Jeff Bridges in the movie he made with Robin Williams.
Really?
The direct, yeah, I'd realized this afterwards, but Terry Gilliam said that we couldn't let Jeff Bridges smile because he looks so good and he looks really warm and nice and sweet and handsome. And this character wasn't supposed to be that way. So we didn't let him smile, and we, as I looked at you, I went, we didn't let her smile. Lieutenant Kane does not smile very
She does not
much.
smile at all. And now I love that because that was like a character trait that I kind of I was a very serious person, but I kept my smile for my wife in the movie, and that was my kind of thing. I was like, there's only a few things that matter to Lieutenant Kane, and she's very serious about a lot of stuff, but there's one something that will keep her heart warm.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, in the movie, your partner was a woman. How was that? Was that the first time for that for you in an
Yeah,
acting role?
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it wasn't a thing. It wasn't. It's not part. That's what I quite liked about it. Actually, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a stance. It was just this is who she loves. There was nothing else made of it, which was kind of beautiful because that's what it should be, right? That's love is love.
Hmm. Well, what are your goals coming up? Voice acting, movie acting, the best that comes forward? What would you like to do?
Oh, I have a ton of goals. Um, Voice acting wise, I would love to do a really good narrative video game, but with a big budget. I love working in video games, but I don't tend to do the shouty, war video games. That's not really my thing. My voice just isn't a very shouty voice. It's quite a soft voice. But I do love doing the ones that have got really good meaty characters and there's mystery involved or there's puzzles to be solved and you really have to dig deep into who the character is. I'm doing one video game at the minute that I'm under NDA for, so I literally cannot talk about it. But I'm very excited about it because it is all of those things. It's super a very natural style. It's not acted at all. The way that the developers are recording is new and interesting, and I'm excited for that to come out. But it's probably going to be a few years until I can talk about that. But that's what I love more than anything is story. So that's what I want to do with voice acting in video games. Oh, I also want to do an animation. I did a big again under NDA, so I can't talk about it. But I did a big animated feature last year that I think I booked when I was on Mythos Murders because I was very excited about it, and I love doing that so much, and it kind of got me thinking. I do tend to book some animation, but it's not something I go after. And this year I think I'm going to take some singing lessons because I would love to do some sort of character singing. I think that would be really fun. And then for movies, and I have a really weird one. Do you know what I really want to do? I want to do a Hallmark movie. I want to do a Hallmark Christmas movie. I love them. I think they're kitsch. They're great escape. They are a tonic for the world. They are just a bit of lovely, fun coziness to have at Christmas. So I would love to be a part of that.
You'll have to send the link to this webcast down to Hallmark. I'm sure they'll be interested. Have you found that in the movie industry in America, they want a more real look than the supermodel look you were talking about in London?
I think, I mean, even in fact, in more so in the UK now, they want the natural look. It was a '90s thing. It was the time of Ally McBeal and when Grey's Anatomy started. It was all very the OC. There was tons of very beautiful, talented actors and actresses, and that was what was fashionable back then. And then there was a turn in the days of Paul Feig and the Freaks and Geeks was probably the first thing that I watched. I was like, oh, real people, and that wasn't that long after I was getting rejected, but there was a turn, and suddenly people wanted real, and they wanted to be relatable, and in fact, the comedy. Um, Actors like the SNL actors that have all ended up doing movies and stuff, they are real people, but they're funny and they're talented. And I think there was a turn in the early 2000s and it's still going strong now. So I was just very unfortunate to have been trying to get at it when I did. If I'd waited another 5 years, I probably would have got cast in a few more roles. But that's where we are. Everything happens for a reason. I now have a whole life of stories that I can tell that I can bring into my performance. And if I had been continued to do acting from the age of 11 until now, I probably wouldn't have experienced those bits of life that have made me who I am. So these things happen for a reason. What I would love to see is more stories for women over 40. And some things are coming through, and that's great. I would love to just keep on exploring that because we're a whole demographic that are the ones that consume probably the most media. So it would be great if we could see ourselves in those stories.
Hey, you sent 4 pictures that I'm going to include on this webcast. And the first one that we're going to look at is called Babs Bank Bouquets.
Babs bouquets,
Babs
yeah.
Bouquets and that's you very pink in that picture. Can you explain that picture and what was happening?
So that was the first film I did in Washington. That was I think it was the Seattle Film for the Northwest Film Forum, and a talented writer director called Jasira Andrus cast and directed me in that movie. It was it was a short, and it was really obscure. And it was very funny, and I got to work with some great people. Basically, I played this awful woman called I can never pronounce it. Jadia. Jardia. Basically, the whole character was based on a strain of disease that causes terrible diarrhea, and the cell itself kind of looks like, in that photo I've got the big pigtails and the big round glasses. That's what this cell looks like.
Oh, you mean Giardia?
Giardia, that's
That's
it.
a horrible disease. Yeah,
I know.
I've experienced it. You know.
So yeah, so they based a character around Jardia, and yeah, so I played this awful woman that was obsessed with balloons and seduced this poor widow. But it was a very funny shoot. I looked ridiculous, and it was great to be ridiculous. But yeah, that's still there, is taken from when they first revealed my character, and they flashed a big red light in my face, and I just had to do this awful like smile. That was very funny to do.
Mm. Okay, well, the next picture, let's talk to me about the natural selection. This is from the one we talked about. I'll have to show this
Yeah.
movie while you're talking about it if I don't get the trailer. Show
Oh,
this
please
picture.
do. Yeah, yeah. Basically, this well, that still is from, we went on an actual boat. I mean, this was a proof of concept with a $20,000 budget, and they did all of this and the special effects. And we got to be on a real what do you call it, a schooner, like the boat. Really beautiful old boat. And we were on that boat all day. And I remember just sitting, we were having lunch in the sea, just off the coast of Portland. And I was, having my sandwich and being on this boat thinking, my goodness, I am so lucky. I get to do this incredible job that people dream of, that I've dreamed of. Whilst in this beautiful place, surrounded by incredibly talented, amazing people, eating a sandwich, which is my favourite food. So I had such a great time on that. But yeah, it was brilliant. I got to dig deep in lots of different things there. We had to pretend that there were dinosaurs there whilst there was just the special effects, big blue pillow coming at you, pretending it was a dinosaur. We got to get covered in mud and makeup, and we were filming at 2 o'clock in the morning, or midnight, I think it was, on this, in the middle of the forest, running away from dinosaurs with fire. It was all amazing. And the writers, Isabel and Alexandra, he was the director as well. Isabel plays the lead. They've just got such a vision for this. I cannot wait to see what they do next, because they are both so very talented and so driven and creative, and managed to create all of that for such a low budget. It's amazing.
I'm going to ask now about your picture for Whispers of Loss. It's a very merry picture, isn't it?
Yeah, I chose that one because it's quite a funny story, but also, it was a really deep subject. It was a short film I did last year, working with a director called Eric Bakshi, and it was about baby loss. And now I'm a mother, so I think I was filming this at the same time as I was filming Mythos, so I was doing two very different roles. And this is the first time I got pretty dark I had to get pretty dark in my mind. The scene that is showing there is when she realized she's woken up from her dream where she has her baby, and then she wakes up and finds that it didn't happen. Her baby died a year ago,
Mm.
and just having to feel that loss, it was really hard, and having to get to that level of emotion. I kind of took myself to that place using music and using my own experience, and using the feelings that I have for my son. And it was being in that small room with the film crew filming you, and you're literally on the floor sobbing, and they yell cut when you've got to go for another take. So you have to keep yourself in that zone, not wear yourself out. It was a very different experience, but it was a good one that I learned a lot from. And what was funny is that I had a line with it was where's my baby, where's my daughter? And because I was crying so hard, I don't know what was going on with my voice, but I couldn't get it above this really low octave. So in the trailer, you hear me say, where's my daughter? I couldn't get it above that. And I was like, I think I've damaged my voice forever. I can't speak any higher than this. It was so funny, but also awful. And I just was, well, this is new. I didn't realize, but I thought, well, this is raw emotion. And if I was, you know, if I'm really a mother who's experiencing that loss, I wouldn't care that my voice was sounding a bit weird right now. I'm just expressing this emotion. So that's how it was. I couldn't physically get it higher. So,
Sounds like you could turn out for a female Terminator role and do very
oh
well.
yeah, yeah. I think I unlocked a whole level of deep in my vocal folds.
Well, the last picture you sent, of course, is from one dear to my heart, and that's from the Mythos murders. So,
Yeah.
can you explain that picture?
That picture I thought was it kind of it explains like what you said. She never smiled and she was always very serious. And that shot is from when we're just kind of first seeing her and we don't know who she is. And what I loved about Mythos and about Lieutenant Kane, um, when we did the auditions, there wasn't much context in the audition, so I played it like I thought I should, which was, I'd kind of developed this character in my head where, she's a lieutenant, she's a female, and she's had to work very hard to get to this point. And what what do you have to be to rise in a male-dominated industry? You have to be serious. You have to be taken seriously. You probably can't joke around like your male counterparts can because you don't want people not taking you seriously. So I'd kind of created this very serious character anyway, but she also had a heart and a bit more of a. She was a bit more like welcoming to the new detective and a bit more, you're another female. We're going to do this together. But of course, it wasn't quite like that the way it turned out. But I just, I don't know. I quite like that shot because I just feel like there's mystery there. You don't know what she's thinking. Is she good? Is she bad? Is she serious? Is she contemplating? I just thought it was quite a good mystery of delving into this character who we find more and more about until the very, very end.
Mm. At the end, would you say she was a good or a bad person?
I think she's a good person, honestly. She just has very deep beliefs, but she's very true to herself and true to her beliefs. And overall, she's not doing anything to hurt anybody or I don't know. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because it's such a good.
No, you don't want to do that.
No.
But yeah, it was interesting to me because she's such a complicated character. A lot of people get different takes on her,
Yeah.
and that's part of the fun.
Yeah,
Is
absolutely. That's what's
mm.
interesting with acting, though, is that you have to love yourself. You have to understand yourself and be able to relate to that character because you can't play somebody that you hate or that you, unless you're playing some sort of self-hating person, I guess, but you have to be able to understand their motives and be able to justify them because that's what they are doing. So,
A lot of what she is won't come out till the sequel, which of course I've already written. You know me, and
amazing. Can't wait.
it's going to be so much fun. I just, as always, the funding. But hey, I'm going to ask this of every person who worked with the Mythos murders. What was it like working with Sandra as a director? And
Oh,
I might
she
use
was.
this in a little documentary clip too. So go ahead.
Sandra is such a giving director and probably one of the most giving directors that I've worked with. She was wonderful at setting up. We had a meeting before we started filming to just delve into the character, talk about the character. She asked us to journal as the character, which is something that I now do for everything, even auditions.
Mm.
That is such a incredible exercise. And in fact, it's an incredible exercise just as a human. I mean, I do my journaling not very thoughtfully. I do it as a stream of consciousness because I feel that's when you get out your absolute, unabridged version of yourself or the character. So I would just talk. And so for Kane, I talked about what was important to me. And that's why I feel like my relationship with my wife is actually one of the core pieces of Kane, because she's her anchor, and she's her partner, and she's whilst there's always going to be like power dynamics, she's actually something that helps her stay on her her route. So, and that only came out because I was journaling, and that's what Sandra did. And throughout, if I ever had any questions, what am I feeling here? What am I thinking here? What's my intention here? She was there, and she just knew the world. She knew the characters so well that I was able to ask her something about myself effectively, and she'd just be there, and just was always supportive. Whenever, if she had notes, she'd come over and just be sitting with you, and it was never a I'm the big director, you do what I do. It was always a collaborative feeling. And I think she's very clever. She gets what she needs out of you, but by making you feel like it's your own idea. And that's the best director, to just make you feel like you've got some power in this, you've got some say in this, but she can also get exactly what she needs out of it. I think it's very clever, and yeah, loved working with her. Would love to work with her again one day.
I would love for you to work with her one day again too.
On the sequel.
Absolutely. you know, is
I
there?
worked. Oh,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead. I'm sorry.
I worked with Bonnie again recently,
Oh,
and
good.
it was like getting back with the family. We
Oh,
worked on
wow.
a film in Spokane, and the minute she walked in the room, we were like, ah! It was awesome. Big hugs,
Oh
and
God. Well, just for the people in the audience who haven't seen the Mythos Murders, they were the female leads in the movie. So
yeah,
Captain Kane and the transferring police officer Mo from Hawaii were the two key characters, really,
yeah.
in what went on. So
And Bonnie is just the most incredible actress. I think she's. Oh, I can't wait to see what she does in the future, because she's so good. Like, I loved watching her in character, and the camera loves her. She's just got a way of switching, and oh, she's great.
well, the camera loves you too, as far as I'm concerned.
No, thank you. I
You
was just
know,
fishing.
No, no, you weren't fishing. It was just that was just spontaneous from me. Okay, I'd like to ask: is there anything you'd like me to ask or to talk about that we haven't talked about? Anything that would about you, or anything about the industry, or about acting, or about? Well, would you advise a young person to go into acting? And if they did, what would you advise?
Oh, I would advise a couple of things. Networking is your absolute key to success as an
Mm,
actor. Just getting out there, like join a film forum, or just go see pieces of work, go to the local film festival, and talk to people, because that's how you collaborate. And I think it's what's really important in the first few years is that you say yes to things. Obviously, nothing's going to be dangerous or detrimental to your career or life,
sure, sure.
but say yes to things, because you learn something new on every single job. And I think sometimes it's in the ones that are maybe lower budget, or with other people that aren't as experienced. That's when you figure things out and you learn things. And I feel like that's a really valuable lesson to learn. The second thing is to have outside interests. Go do stuff. Go volunteer. Go um, find a hobby or something, because those things are what shape you as a human, and then you can bring those into your performances as well. And I think also make your own content. And, people say that all the time. And it used to annoy me, because I'd be like, am not. I'm not one of these people. There are an incredible amount of actors in Washington who are also very talented writers and directors or ADs. I don't do any of those other things. So maybe I should have done. Maybe I should have learned that early. So maybe do that. You learn a hell of a lot more if you know all about it. But if you can make something with other people, or on your own. I have a storytelling podcast. That's my way of making something. I learn something new every week, and learn something, or I hone skills on storytelling or audio editing and things like that. So get out there and do stuff, even if it's terrible. You'll learn something, you'll make a connection, and you'll have fun. And you never know what opportunity that's going to open up in the future. I would love to say to people, about starting in the business later in life, because a lot of people think that if they haven't done it by the time they're 30, they've passed it already. They're not going to be able to do it. So I think I would love to, you know, if you ever ask me if a question, what's it like starting later on in life? I think it's probably the best time to start because a there's a lot less of me. There's not a lot of actors. If they don't make it by 30, they give up. So there's very few unknown actors in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You can start any time. Just get some coaching, get some experience, get out there and do stuff. Um, so yeah, that's the only thing I would say is, don't ever get discouraged because of your age or your experience level. It's never too late to start. And this is such a great career that you don't have to give it up at any age. I fully intend to do this until my last day, which will hopefully be somewhere when I'm like 120 or something. I'm working on it. Working on my health. Fully intend. Have this podcast as my record. I'm going to go about 120. I'm working really hard on health.
Well, when we were making the Mythos mergers, I was impressed that even on days that you weren't shooting, there was one day we were out in a park shooting out in the woods, and you showed up with your son, and
Yeah.
just to say hi to everybody and see how it was going, and that was great to see you. That was
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really a cool thing. It
But
uh,
that's the sign of a good cast and crew, and you feel like you've got that connection with everybody. I wanted my son to see everything like that because he was asking why I was away quite a lot during that time. I was working long days and stuff, and he was asking what I was doing. I was like, well, I'm making a movie, and he wanted to see it, so he came, and that was really nice to show him what mummy does. I still don't think he understands. He's only 5. He was 4 at the time, so he was just like, okay, that's what she does. Can I go play now? But yeah, I think I just liked hanging out with people. That's what's really nice, and again, that's what makes the movies is the moments when the camera's not shooting, is when you make those connections with people, when you build relationships with people and learn about each other. And now I have a bunch of people I can recommend. If anybody wants to ask, oh, have you got a recommendation for a makeup artist? I'm like, absolutely, Kelsey Sprague. She's amazing. So that's when you make the best connections with people.
well, thank you so much for being here.
It's my
I'm
pleasure.
I'm uh, kind of regretting letting you go because it's so much fun to talk to you. On set, we never had time to talk because you were always busy, and I was always we were doing things.
Yeah, when I was working, you were off, and when you were working, I was messing around. So,
Oh well, no, well that was just the way it is. And as executive director and the screenwriter, of course, I'm like a mother hen. I'm just,
yeah.
oh God, the first film, the short, was just, I was so horrible. I was so nervous and so wanting to make sure I just had to go away.
Sometimes it's easier. Just let it happen. Take a step back.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, um, what was it? One last question. Being another person who's going to be on a webcast with me soon, said that after she had a child, it was difficult to get cast for a while. And was that? But you weren't acting then, were you? When you had or were you just starting back?
I was doing modelling. So I was doing commercial work on
Mm-hmm.
camera before I had my son, and whilst I was pregnant, and then afterwards, I fully intended to go back straight away, but COVID happened, so
Mm.
that's that kind of put an end to it. Um, the one thing that I have found there was a part that came up recently for a film in Oregon where they needed I think they needed an Irish person or a British person in their 40s. I was like, that's me. And there's not a huge amount of us, me and Rachel, like Rachel Taggart, I think are the two British people around here. And it was such a good role. And it was going to be such a long shoot. It was filming, I think they needed you to be there, staying there in Oregon for a month.
Ooh.
And I thought, I would love that. Pre baby Ali, absolutely on. That sounds incredible. But I can't. I have a son, so I
Mm.
can't. I can't leave him for that long.
Mm.
it's going to be tricky. I mean, I think if, Hollywood comes calling and some big blockbuster movie and they needs me in LA for a month, and, me and my husband will make things work. But at the minute, I find it financially, it just wasn't going to be worth enough for me to not see my son for a month, or
Mm,
not
mm.
being able to fly back and forth, or drive back and forth quickly, or have him come over and stuff. So it just, yeah. So unfortunately, I couldn't even audition for that role. Even I was like, oh my god, that sounds so good. That's such a good story,
Oh,
such a
wow.
good part. That's going to bug me that I couldn't even try out for it. But oh well,
Yeah,
things
I
happen
didn't
for a
mention
reason.
to you that my grandmother was a Murphy.
Oh, really?
Yep, yep, Marge
Oh,
Murphy. Yeah.
that's a great Irish name, that.
Oh yeah, yeah. She was very, very much that way too. I mean, she could have fit into any of the old Irish movies. She could be a good extra in them. She
She
would have
wasn't
been.
from Chicago, was she?
Well, from the Midwest, from Wisconsin, so
You
not
never
too
know.
far away from
My
Chicago.
that's my 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 family history is my great grandfather was one of seven sons, and
Ooh.
six of the sons moved from Ireland to America, and I think they all settled in Chicago. And then my grandfather got some English chick pregnant, so then had to go and marry her. So that's why we ended up on that side of the pond.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And now you're here anyway.
And now I'm here anyway, so yeah.
So did you come over for work or for a relationship or for?
Well, my husband's British, but he got his dream job. He's an animator, and he got his absolute dream job over here in Washington. So we'd always loved the Pacific Northwest, and I'd always loved the West Coast of the USA. So it was a bit of a no-brainer when he got offered the job, and we didn't have kids at the time. So we accepted the job, but it took 4 years for the visas to get approved. So in that time, we had our son. My son was born in the UK, and yeah, but we moved over 2.5 years ago. But really, we thought we were going to move here over 6 years ago. I kind of wish we'd had, because it would have been easier to buy a house 6 years ago than it is now. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. But yeah, we're here now, and we love it. It's such a beautiful place to be. We were hiking in beautiful forests and waterfalls at the weekend. Can't do that in England, so this was great.
Mm, mm, mm. Did so is hiking your hobby? I was going to ask real quick what your hobbies were. You said everybody needed one. Is that one of yours?
It's one of mine. Yeah, I love hiking. I love being outdoors and climbing and things like that. Not incredibly good at it or skilled, but I do. I just love it. And in the summer, I like to be out every week if I can. If I get a spare minute, which isn't very often, I try and do that. And now my son is quite kind of old enough to go, so I took him with me on Sunday. He moaned a lot of the way, but keep chocolate in your pocket and you can get anything done. So hiking is one of them. I love paddleboarding, which is something I can't really do in this chilly weather. But I love knitting and paint by numbers, because I can't paint in real life, but I love painting. So I do paint by numbers, or I'll do the wine and painting events that are local in the winery region around here. They're a lot of fun, because then I get to drink wine and paint.
Ah.
But, yeah.
Well, hey, could I ask one last mythos question before we go?
Sure.
As a screenwriter, I'm always interested in what line or lines or scenes did you particularly like, as far as being able to sink your teeth into and really thought they got it right, or if there were any in
Oh,
particular.
there's so many that come to mind. The moments when I'm trying to in that very first scene, and I'm trying to read uh, Mo. That I like. It sounds weird, but I like the silences in between lines a lot of the time. That's when the real, that's when your thought process is going. When you're not speaking and you're just making, looking at Mo and thinking, okay, you're going to be the right person for this. And I'm thinking of the story to come, but they don't know that. I'm thinking, oh, is she going to be suitable for what I need her for? They're my favourite parts, is the silences and just the stares and the figuring it all out. So for me, that's kind of my favourite part, is what the audience doesn't know, but I get to think, and hopefully that comes across in my eyes on the second and third watch. They can watch that back and go, oh, she's looking at her thinking, are you the one that I need? Or is she thinking, anything? I love that. So that's probably not the best answer for the screenwriter, but you write the silences as well as the as the words. So.
Well, what's interesting is the first view, they're going to be wondering, what's she thinking about? And then they're going to go, oh,
Yeah.
that's what it was. I
That's
mean,
what
that's
I
that's a
hope will
lot of
come
fun.
across in the eyes. Yeah, that's what I'm
Hmm.
hoping. That's what's kind of wonderful actually about the silences is that the audience gets to be a detective and look and go, okay, she doesn't look like this. So maybe she's thinking this. They get to do that. So and yeah, that's I quite like those parts.
Do you
Part of the
remember
mystery.
an American actor named Glenn Ford? Do you remember him from his old movies?
Yeah.
He said his secret to acting was not showing anything, just looking and thinking and letting the audience put his thoughts into his head. And he was really good at this. He was a great actor. And
Oh,
he had a
amazing.
lot of those moments you were just talking about. Like I remember one movie, the bombs are coming, he's about to die, and he just sits there and looks. Now
Yeah.
you could put anything into his head, like, oh crap, I'm going to die, or screw them, I'm going to die the right
Yeah.
way, or whatever, and it worked.
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
very
that's
successful.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good note.
Mm, mm. Well, hey, well, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm going to edit
Thank
this up,
you.
and like I said, I'm going to keep some clips possibly for a little documentary or trailer about Mythos murders, but
Amazing.
they'll also be here for you in the webcast. I keep calling it podcast. It's a webcast because there's pictures too. So
Oh.
wait, why is it on me? It should be on you. It's much nicer when they see you.
I've had enough of
So
me.
yeah. Well, hey, well, thank you very much.